Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Bit of a strangely timed video this time around because we had the match last night, obviously. Spoke to Postecoglou afterwards in the press conference, and then less than 12 hours later, Postecoglou was in front of us again at Hotspur Way because we had a press conference. Postecoglou's got this thing where you might remember, or you might not, some previous managers and various Premier League managers don't mind having the next pre-match press conference tagged on to the end of the previous football match. So they'll talk about the game that's just happened, and then the press officer will say, and now questions for this weekend's game against blah blah, and that'll be embargoed. It's normally for midday the next day or something. Postecoglou is more. He doesn't particularly like switching his brain to the next match straight away after a kind of the previous match. He wants to kind of digest it, take that into account before really looking forward. So that means that with Postecoglou, pretty much almost always, we're going to see what happens around Christmas, but almost always you'll have a separate press conference straight away the next morning. And that's meant some very difficult ones where, I don't know, where I've been away in a European game and then they fly back that night and then there's a press conference at like 10, 11 o'clock the next morning at Hotspur Way. And most of the regular reporters are still out in the country where they were covering the game because they were flying back a bit later. The interesting one's going to be next Thursday night. We've got Bournemouth away with an 8:15 p.m. kickoff, which is the stupidest kickoff time ever imaginable. I know there's other dumb ones, but that's a pretty dumb one. And then I'm going to have to, it's too late to drive back because I'll be getting back at about 4 in the morning. So I'm going to stay over and then the next morning get like a 6 a.m. something train in order to be back for the very early press conference the next day at Hotspur Way. I know, first world issues. Very much, I know, don't worry. I know. I'm not moaning about it. I'm just saying about how quick the turnaround is. So that is why I'm ever so slightly smarter than normal. It's like a polo shirt. It's not like I'm wearing a shirt or anything. But yeah, slightly smarter when I go to press conference days. But yeah, sorry that you had to have the first 2 minutes of the video explaining how press conferences work. I'm sure you didn't need to know that in your lives at all. But yeah. So, Postecoglou, twice within 12 hours. So it gives a little bit to talk about, not only the match, but also some of the stuff he said today was really interesting. What I would say isn't interesting is the same two questions that he gets so much over and over and over again. One of them kind of brings a bit of a grin and a kind of a shake of the head. The other, he's just, I think, getting exasperated by. That's the one where he'll start to get a little bit irritated, especially when it's after a game and maybe it's an away game and you get someone from the media from that area, perhaps, I don't know. But yeah. So the reason that you'll sometimes get repetitive questions, don't worry, I'm going to explain what that question was. I wasn't just like, I know I've done that sometimes where I've got to a point and then forgotten to actually mention what the thing I was talking about was. It definitely happened once. I remember someone saying in the comments, like, you never actually explained what it was. That's the problem when you're doing a video that is a raw stream of consciousness. So the reason that you'll get, and I know it frustrates the hell out of people when they're looking at the transcripts I put out from the press conferences, or they'll see it on the TV or whatever. It frustrates so many people that you'll see the same questions asked over and over and over again. The reason behind that is you just purely the huge number of different journalists that pass through Premier League games, European games, Cup games, whatever, that don't cover the club regularly, or if they cover the club on occasions and they dip in and out of it. You've got mugs like myself that are there week in, week out for the roller coaster that is Tottenham Hotspur. But yeah, so whether this is after a match, whether it's pre-match ones at the training ground, having people that haven't been there week in, week out, they're not aware that these questions have been asked 7 million times before. So they will ask them. And trust me, if you're in the room, you get all the regulars are going, oh my goodness, not again. And that's pretty much Postecoglou's kind of response in his head as well. As I watched back to see a close-up of his face and how he dealt with the question this morning that he's had a billion times, and his face was just like, oh, I just want to go home kind of thing. So yeah, the main question that he gets all the time, this is definitely numero uno, is since he's arrived at Spurs, it may well have been at previous clubs as well, is will you be pragmatic? And, whether that's match ABC or whether that's in a certain moment, whatever. It's asked in different ways. We've had different language. They vary it up. But essentially, it's always the same question wrapped in different clothes. And yeah, it's always posed with this kind of weird same intent, as if this guy that has coached in a very certain way with a certain philosophy for 26 years of his coaching career might suddenly go, oh, you know what? I'm going to park the bus today. Yay! Let's park a bus. It's like, or even like, just going to take a more kind of pragmatic approach to a game. It's just not what he does. And yeah, that's the one that I think we'll talk about a little bit further in a moment. He's slightly less annoyed by, because I think he's just got used to answering it. The one that irks him far more, which comes in at number 2 in the question charts, is set pieces. So Spurs conceded from a set piece last night. Paulo Dybala whips in, I think it was a free kick. The ball goes off the head of Evan Ndikia's shoulder, deflects, big loop on it, goes inside hits the crossbar and goes in the goal. So, Spurs, we know, have improved their set-piece defending. We've been talking about this over and over and over again. Nick Montgomery's had a big influence on that. They haven't conceded many set-piece goals this season at all, especially when you take off the weird throw-in one that some stat sites have added in. So yeah, the question that came from the press conference, I think it was an Italian reporter, asked a question. I will ask simply, is there any way your team can improve their set-piece defending? Postecoglou just went like, shook his head and just said, I've got it here, I don't even know what to say to that. I think that's the third set-piece goal we've conceded from the season in about 20 games. I get it, but I don't know what to say. Let's move on. And it's just, you could tell he just didn't want to get even more irritated by the question. So when it comes to the pragmatic question, will you change your style? Will you be more conservative? Whatever words you want to put in there instead. I definitely feel he takes that a little bit less kind of in an irritated fashion. And he kind of almost has fun, as if like, you're not going to fit me in your little box that you want to put me in. I'm not going to fit in there. And he was asked twice within the space of 12 hours this question in different ways. First one on Thursday night. He was asked whether the draw against Roma, which put Spurs into 9th, I think it is, in the big table, top 8 go through without having to do the playoff round. He was asked whether, because of the draw, the next 3 Europa League games, the priority is to simply win ahead of any artistic merit and it being entertaining, just to make sure Spurs finish in that top 8 so they can bypass that pesky playoff round. He had a little think, looked to one side, and he kind of went back across to the journalist and went, no. And that kind of got a little laugh from the room because we knew it was coming. And he said, no again, with a bit of a smile. He said, why can't it just be entertaining, mate? Isn't it why we all come? Would you really prefer us to sketch out a couple of 0-0 draws and a 1-0 win and we get through? I don't know. I would much rather we're exciting to watch and maybe it is edge of the seat stuff and sometimes we don't get the reward like we could have done tonight. But no, I think if you want those kind of games, there are plenty in world football you can watch every weekend. I'd like to think when you tune into us, you'll get entertained. So I think some people took that as he doesn't want to win matches. He just wants to be entertaining. And that's just not the case with Postecoglou. What he does in these little situations, and this is what I feel, I don't think he cares about how it looks to the wider audience whatsoever. It just doesn't care in the slightest. I don't think he's that fussed by what happens on social media. I think he looks at that. He was joking today that I think he said he's... actually, I don't know if I can say that because I think it might be in a later embargo section. Maybe. It doesn't matter. It's not the biggest thing in the world anyway, but I just don't want to say it and it goes out before. I think there's some 10:30 stuff tonight. But essentially, he doesn't care what the outside world thinks is probably the best way to put it. In that scenario, had he not wanted to be messing around with the reporter and be kind of classic Postecoglou when he does, he could have quite easily said when they said, is a priority to win rather than just be entertaining and all this sort of stuff. He could have just said, why not both? That's it. It's a simple answer, which doesn't get anyone annoyed. It just says it all. But I think he likes to kind of almost troll them and bait them, and when people ask these questions. And look, of course he wants to win. Of course he does. This guy does win. He's everywhere he's gone, he's won. He's got silverware and everything. It's like he doesn't want to just be like the greatest showman. He wants all the silverware to show for that as well. He's very ambitious. He demands that from everyone around him. Most of all, of course, he wants to do that in style. He wants to win. He wants to win trophies. He wants to win titles, more so even than trophies, as in, cup competitions and stuff. But he wants to do it in a certain style. And it all boils down to, if we're going to get a little bit deep on it, it's all because that's what his father, Jim, would have been proud of, or proud to watch. It's this kind of inbuilt instinct to please his dad. You might remember the kind of the backstory. Ange Postecoglou came over to Melbourne from Greece, and kind of he and his dad didn't have like the most amazing close relationship, but what they did bond over was football. Whether that was going to watch South Melbourne at the weekends, or whether that was staying up late at night watching on the TV football, mostly from England and the First Division as it would have been back in those days. So the two of them love to watch exciting attacking football. And that's what he does. He wants to essentially replicate that and just create a team that will win with a swagger and a style and what his dad would have loved. It's a very kind of simple, lovely kind of philosophy that all kind of stems from this far more complicated thing as well. And that's what I mean. It's like there's this kind of belief that because he wants to attack, that's it. That's the only thing to it. There's nothing more. There's no complexity to it. But there's a plan A, B, and C, and more. It's quite a complicated, overarching philosophy. The players have to take a lot on in this system. Because don't forget, it's been sculpted and adapted over almost 3 decades worth of coaching. You don't just go, score a goal, that's side. It's like, there's not what to do. There's so much to it. And it's football that is a lot kind of defending by control, while also acknowledging that there are times, because of the style of football, you're going to lose a little bit of control, but also to be ready for those moments. So that was the answer to that question. Then less than 12 hours on from that press conference within Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, we were at Hotspur Way. We got another one of these questions. So this question was asked, is there a scenario where maybe you would need to be a bit more pragmatic, asked one reporter. I'm not going to name the reporter. People always want to know. That's not my job. If you watch these videos, you can probably work out if they're well-known ones, or if they're not well-known ones, you can probably work it out. But it's not my job to say like, it was them or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just explaining again. There's a reason behind it. Sometimes it's not so regular or semi-regular people that cover these things. So, is there a scenario where you would need to be a bit more pragmatic? To which Postecoglou, as he's being asked the question, this is the one I watched back, he kind of closes his eyes and there's almost like a sigh before he kind of lets out this little, like, when you kind of laugh through your nose, it's like, that kind of thing. He does one of those. And then I think he just tried to sum it up for probably what was, I don't know, about the 112th time that he's had to do it since he's arrived at Spurs. And I thought it was a good answer. I thought this one was a better answer. It was kind of a more all-encompassing answer. So he said, look, I don't know how many ways I can say this. I understand it. Look, there's plenty of room for pragmatism in all walks of life, and in football as well, but I'm just not interested in it. I don't know why I need to change my approach to be like everyone else wants me to be. I'll continue to push this team to be a bit different, to play football in a different way, and maybe when I'm long gone, you'll all pine for my entertainment, and you'll have had your fill of pragmatism. That's the point we kind of had before we arrived. But look, if we were pragmatic, I'd say at 2-0 up at City away, we'd have probably settled and we wouldn't have got the victory we did and made it a special moment for our club. I always think of the possibilities of what could be if we continue down this road, rather than holding on to what we have. Because at the moment, what do we have? We don't have a hell of a lot. We haven't achieved anything yet. We haven't had success. We haven't done all the things we want to do. So if I start being pragmatic now, maybe we'll never get there. Last night, we weren't at our highest level, but geez, I thought for 20 minutes we were exciting as we've been since I've been here. I loved our last 20 minutes of the first half. We should have got a third goal to kill the game off, but we were exciting to watch, and that's what I want. So yeah, it's all within that answer. There's a desire to entertain, but also a clear statement that there's an end game to it. It's not just entertainment for the sake of entertainment. It's leading somewhere. It's what he wants to get to. The possibilities that lie at the end of Postecoglou way. Yeah, I mean, as I said, Spurs have had pragmatism in recent years, and it stank. It stank the place out. It really did. How many of these videos have you got me going, oh, that was rubbish? And yeah, last night's game, don't worry, don't worry, I'm sure you're not worrying, but we are going to talk about last night's game. And it was entertaining. And it was one of those games you kind of came away with thinking, like, there was something like almost 40, just under 40 shots on goal from kind of across the two sides. And yeah, look, do we want Spurs to win the game? Of course. Should they have won it just by burying the mountain of things the shots they had to go? Yes. And they're ultimately, just one of those moments like Solanke pulls the ball across to Maddison in space in the box and then puts it away instead of having a shot. That's it. It's game over and it doesn't get to where it did at the end. But yeah, let's be honest. When Spurs have been really pragmatic, we haven't really wanted to go and watch them. There was a little period where I was like going to matches like, oh, this is a chore. But I really enjoy covering Spurs right now. Yeah, there's still a crazy mess at times, and I think there's reasons for that. And yeah, last night was very frustrating with a late goal. Of course it was. There's no getting away from that. But I do enjoy covering Spurs. I do enjoy watching them. I enjoy the football they play. They create some beautiful openings and goals and things like, Brennan Johnson's goal last night was beautiful. I love that style of football. It's wonderful to watch. And even look, when we've had managers like, Pochettino in the past, maybe even go back to Martin Jol, even when there's a kind of an attacking quality to the system, yet also times of pragmatism, I kind of feel like we've had this thing with Spurs over the years where Spurs go kind of in an attacking sense, get a lead, and then they sit on it. And then they invite pressure and they concede a goal that you just knew was coming. And look, the fans and myself, and we always used to be so furious when that inevitable kind of late collapse would come. I know last night they did concede a goal, but it's a different kind of thing. I don't actually feel that when Spurs are flying, I don't actually feel under Postecoglou that they are going to concede that late goal. I kind of feel it's more likely they're going to get another goal. There aren't going to be moments because they've got a young team. They've got 6 players out, 7 if you're going to include Bentancur for the Premier League games as well. It's a bit of a mess of a team right now. But I still feel like against City at the Etihad, it's like they just kept going and going and going. And that's what the Postecoglou plan is. It's never sit back and protect. It's be merciless. It's push on and destroy. And it is what we've called for. This is the funny thing. And I find myself at times as well doing exactly the same thing. It's kind of like there were so many times over the years I thought, why are you sitting back? Go and get them. Go and get another one. And it's exactly what the Postecoglou way is. And at times, we all, and myself included, kind of have moments where we're like, can you just not sit on that? Do you have to keep going? But like he said, it is going to bring you results like that, where they're going to go and wallop a City, they're going to wallop Villa, they're going to wallop Man United away as well, and it's just, I think it's continuously working on it to the degree that, essentially you're taking advantage of the advantage you create for yourself, and you're preventing any little leeway for the opposition to get back into it, because right now, they're having these little missteps. And last night was the perfect example. Spurs had 24 shots on goal. Scored twice, hit the woodwork 3 times. What was it? Pedro Porro free kick onto the bar. Kulusevski in the first half hit a ball across that hit the right-hand post. Solanke headed against the crossbar. 12 shots of those 24 were actually on target. Roma keeper Miles Villar had to make 9 saves on the night. They should have buried them in a host of chances. They really have, a flood of goals. And look, Roma did have chances. They did, absolutely. But that kind of, a lot of that came from Spurs just not seeing the game out with more goals. They had so many chances to do so. It was ridiculous. And whether that is a lack of fresh key players to bring on as the game goes on, so that you've got, like, bring on a Richarlison, an Odegaard, those kind of players that can kind of make that difference in those forward areas as well. Even young Mikey Moore, having him to be able to come on and just giving more and more threat to the defence to deal with. It could be that. It could just be simply being, poor in the final third and not finishing off with the amount of chances you create. It could be switching off at the other end. Spurs are not quite there yet, and you can see that, and that's where the inconsistency comes from. Even like a simple moment we'll talk about a little bit more depth later on. The offside line. There was an offside line that you could see the way Spurs were playing when the final goal occurred. Would have been absolutely fine, apart from Yves Bissouma, who was just hugging the post almost, destroying any notion of an offside trap. It's little things like that kind of to be drilled in, and I would never, ever doubt Postecoglou's desire to win. I mean, the greatest example is one that actually annoyed a lot of fans was last season towards the end against Man City, when certain kind of sections of the fan base wanted them to lose because obviously it would take the title away from, or help to take the title away from Arsenal. And I remember that, talking about to Postecoglou after that night, and how devastated he was that people might think he didn't actually want to win the game, and kind of questioning his whole integrity about it all. Last night provided another kind of example, if you needed it, of his desire to win. If you want to see that in action, watch how he absolutely explodes at Brennan Johnson. He gets so angry with him. It was just before half-time, I think, not too far before the break. So bear in mind, Brennan Johnson had always scored a beautiful goal. 9th goal of the season. Dejan Kulusevski gets into the edge of the box, pulls the ball across, and there's Brennan Johnson doing it, which he's doing so well at the moment. Lovely first time left-footed finish right into the net. Beautiful, absolutely lovely goal. However, that does not mean you escape the Postecoglou wrath. It was like he kind of came back to get a ball that was brought to him, and rather than kind of turning, spinning, doing anything positive with it, it just kind of, the ball went back. I think it went to Radu Dragićin. And the next time the ball went out of play, because I think Roma kind of got the ball and made something of it after that as well. And my goodness, you could see Postecoglou just down in front of us, going ballistic. He was swinging his arms around. He was doing all of this, like that kind of stuff. Just trying to essentially, it looked like we were kind of trying to lip read. It looked like he was saying, Brennan, get it forward. You're going back, running behind, maybe with some other choice words in there as well. So we got a chance today to kind of ask about it. I think it was Paul Gilmore from Sky asked about it. See, I don't mind saying the questions when they're good ones. And they kind of essentially said, was that what you were trying to say? Get the ball forward. And so Postecoglou said, this football, it's always a work in progress. That's my role, to just keep driving the guys. There can be a tendency at times to want to go back from full throttle and ease. And I just felt at that point we were on top of them, and Brennan was looking dangerous every time we went forward, and we were looking good. I just thought, look, and it's human nature. We're winning 2-1 at a time, and just to keep the ball, but that's not who we want to be. In those moments, it's more about me trying to empower and embolden the players, not to fear playing that way. So I think your lip reading was pretty good, mate. And actually, Brennan Johnson was asked about it after the game. And he said that Postecoglou spoke to him at half-time about it as well. He said, it's important. He's such a good manager, and I think his view can be a lot better than mine at times. In the game, it's easier to get into your own head a little bit. So at half-time, he told me a bit of information that was definitely helpful, and nothing more than that, really. He just said about keep being more positive, and that's all he needs from all of our players. Trying to be positive, on the front foot, play forward. And I think in the first half, I was guilty of playing back too much, so that was definitely something I took on board. Look, Johnson is Spurs' top scorer. There are moments when you kind of want him to just go at your player kind of thing. But I don't really want to go to kind of too hard on him in that respect, because I actually feel like he does that plenty of times, and he does it in key moments. I mean, just take last night, for example. First goal, penalty, came from Brennan Johnson surging down the right-hand side, getting the ball across. Pat Matsar gets foot to it. It's a clear penalty. I don't know how the referee kind of waved it away and then eventually had to be told by like the VAR, you might want to go over to your TV. I think you made a boo-boo. And it's like, it's so obvious. It's like you could see it was a trip, and we're however far we are away in the press box. And so that came from Brennan Johnson doing that surging run. And of course, second goal was an absolute beauty to put Spurs into the lead. And Postecoglou was asked this morning, kind of what's been the difference? Why has Johnson already got 9 goals this season when he finished last season with 5? What's the difference? And he said, I think some of it is you get confidence and self-belief. The biggest thing is a real discipline about the position he takes up. He's always in the right areas. The way we play, if you get yourself into the right areas and you get the benefit or the rewards of it, I think because he got the reward, he's really making sure he's really disciplined about always being there. It's easy to say because of the way we play, but sometimes it takes great concentration and focus in those moments. Whether it's at the weekend against Man City when he sort of knew it was likely Timo would be hitting that far post, and even last night that Kulusevski would hit a certain area, he's always there and he's a good finisher. I still think there is more though. I wasn't as happy with some parts of his game last night, particularly around just being a bit more positive. And even the pressing was not great from our front three. It hasn't been as good. But that comes back to the player himself wanting to improve and not settle for just scoring some goals. I think he can be better and I want him to be better. That was interesting because I thought that yesterday. I thought the pressing was a little bit less joined up. I felt Solanke suffered from having a bit of a groin problem in the first half. He had this tackle on him and he goes down. His legs kind of spread out and split in a way that no one wants their legs to spread out and split. You could see he kind of did something to his groin and he was a bit sore after that. So it kind of did affect the pressing. And as Postecoglou said the other day about Solanke, he kind of inspires the others. When they see him pressing like a madman, they feel that they kind of have to as well. And I did feel that yesterday, that the press was a bit near, and that gave Roma too many opportunities just kind of to get out of it or pump the ball down the flanks and stuff. But yeah, back to Johnson. 7 of his 10 Premier League goals that he scored for Spurs since he arrived from Forest have come in the 6-yard box. And Postecoglou was asked about that. And he said, look, go watch Celtic play. Go watch Yokohama Marinos play. Go watch Brisbane Roar play. Go watch the Socceroos play, mate. You'll see I would love to be in a right winger in my team, mate. I would score bags of goals. I don't know if he would. He was a left back, wasn't he, Postecoglou? But yeah, I get what you're saying. It's interesting though that the right winger is the one that maybe benefits the most from that. It's quite interesting. You kind of want it to be the striker. I asked him about that with Solanke today. I said he's had a couple of decent chances last night, Solanke, but is there more that Spurs could do to kind of create for him? Because I feel like there's been some games where he's almost having to do loads of hard work, but not really getting the rewards of opportunities for himself to try and score a goal. And he played it down a little bit. He was really good. I asked him about Archie Gray, which we'll talk about in a bit. He was quite good on the squad and things like that. But that one, he was a bit like, no, I think we create quite a lot of chances. It didn't really answer my question. I meant more for Solanke. Yes, they created a load of chances last night, but probably I just feel like Solanke doesn't get a lot of kind of simple opportunities to put the ball in the net, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I mean, on Solanke, he had an acrobatic overhead kick, which the keeper saved first half, then sent the one against the header. Sent the header against the crossbar from Archie Gray's cross. It's one of those, I kind of feel like the ball, it was a great cross from Archie Gray, but it was almost like the way he met it, Solanke, he couldn't quite have the height to just get over it enough to kind of send it down. He was always going to end up sending it, like powering it straight forward. And then he had that chance where he kind of tested the keeper from a tight angle when Maddison, who'd kind of played the ball to him in the first place, is there in like loads of room in the 6-yard box. He just had to square it across. And maybe that's the striker's instinct. Maybe thinking, look, I haven't scored in a couple of games. I want to score tonight. And just taking the shot rather than looking up for the obvious pass. But I mean, Postecoglou said today that groin injury wasn't anything serious. He's a little bit sore, but they're so short that he's absolutely fine to keep playing. But I mean, little things like that. It'd been great for him not to have to play so long last night. That is definitely a consequence of the squad being kind of having six last night players ripped out of it. Son was quite busy, especially first half. Kept trying to open Roma up a bit on the left. Obviously had the penalty, which he sent the keeper the wrong way. blazing effort over the bar. I think that was the one where it hit the post after Kulusevski's shot and then he smashed it over. Then he forced the keeper into a really good flying save with a kind of cut inside and curling effort in the first half. Like Johnson, he was quieter in the second half. I felt they both were. Just feel like Sonny hasn't found his rhythm yet. He's had a season where it's been interrupted by injury, of course it has, and it just hasn't quite clicked for him entirely. He's been cutting inside at times as well. He is able to get into those areas where he can curl a shot at goal, like we know he can do so well, but just hasn't. The one against City, when was it? It was City, wasn't it? And Ederson made an amazing save, but I feel like he's not pulling the trigger enough in those positions, where I probably would like to see him do much more, because it is the classic Sonny goal. He was asked about the fact that Son's got 4 goals this season, when you probably would imagine relatively Sonny would normally have more by now. And he said he was asked whether he's lacking confidence, and he said, "I don't know if he's lacking confidence. I just think Sonny's had a disrupted year for us, so that doesn't help. He had some good chances last night to." Actually said tonight, because this was the question last night. He was asked to get the goal, and he's getting in those areas. He's got the quality to take those chances, and we know he's done it consistently for almost a decade, but he's had a disrupted season being in and out, and you can see he's getting back to full fitness now, which is the main thing for us. We're quite thin in those wide areas, so he's playing, and we've got to make sure we're careful with him, Brennan and Timo, because they're the only wingers we've got left. It is actually, and will have for the foreseeable future. That's interesting. I didn't even really think about that quite foreseeable future. I mean, definitely for the next month. Then you've got Heung-min coming. Like I said before, they're going to take it carefully with him. Not throw him straight into a league he's kind of going to have to take a bit of time to adapt to. But also, who knows? Might sign another one in January. We'll talk about January window as well. And he said, "I thought tonight it wasn't just Sonny. There were quite a few really good chances. We hit the post 3 times as well, and a couple cleared off the line." I said, actually, there were a few cleared off the line. I forgot about that as well. I still felt there were a couple of occasions where a bit more composure would have finished the game off. Bentancur was back in the lineup. We got to see one of only 2 opportunities to see Bentancur before Christmas. I'll be honest, I expected more from him. I thought, he's going to be the fit and refresh one. I really want to prove a point and kind of show everyone I'm here. I didn't think he was that great. I thought he was a little bit off the pace. Shouldn't really be lacking in sharpness. He was only playing recently, wasn't he? International break was the last time he was playing, so he hasn't really missed much. It's just a City game, isn't it? He's missed. I'm just going mad. And I actually thought he looked tired as the game wore on. They kind of took him off in the 76th minute. Before that, we were kind of saying among the media, you keep him on for 90 minutes. You've got to use him for the full amount of time and then give others a rest. But it got to about midway through the second half, and you could tell he had his hands on his hips at times. He looked like he was a little bit knackered. I didn't think Bentancur was great. I thought Sarr was okay in moments. It was a funny game. He was some of his short passing was a bit sloppy, but some of his longer passing was brilliant. He set Solanke away a couple of times. It was really good, and obviously great run to win the penalty early on. And probably one of the best players on the night was Fraser Forster. All eyes were going to be on him, of course, because he's replacing Guilherme Vicario, who we of course know fractured his ankle and is going to be out for months, as Postecoglou said. I thought Forster was good. I thought first goal was nothing can do about it. I watched it back a few times, loops off Ndika's shoulder, and it's so far away from Forster. No keeper is saving that. That goes right under the crossbar and way, way away from him. And then the goal right at the end, it's Basuma playing everyone on and a tap in at the back post, which again isn't really his. I don't think you can pin it on him. I felt on the whole he was quite confident in gathering crosses, set pieces. He did well with that when he kind of could get to the ball. Made a couple of good, smart kind of low stops from Paulo Dybala in the first half. It was weird seeing Paulo Dybala there. It's kind of a bit like, it should have been you. And 2019, wasn't it? The infamous Paulo Dybala summer, when everything converged to ensure that didn't happen. He bailed out Porro, didn't he, Forster, late in the game as well. Porro made another iffy header back which Artem Dovbyk got in there and Forster made a good save. It did scarily remind me of the moment that he did against City when he poor back pass. Savinho gets in there, and we now know fractures Vicario's foot, or certainly the way he falls kind of hurts his ankle. But yeah, I just think, can you imagine if Porro indirectly again got another keeper injured? But yeah, and the late equaliser was all the more painful because Forster made a brilliant save before it. Honestly, I thought, and I was so gutted for it because I thought that was going to be the narrative. I thought the narrative of the game was going to be Spurs don't take their chances, but thank goodness Fraser Forster's there because it was incredible. So I think it was Mancini in the box. Ball comes to him and he just smashes this volley from maybe 8 yards, 9 yards, if that. And Forster, who would have seen the ball late, makes an incredible reflex save to push it over his bar. Honestly, probably the best save I've seen this season. Vicario's made some very good ones, but I would actually say, looking at the pace of the shot, looking at how far out it was, because it wasn't far, and the fact that I think he was obscured from seeing it till late on, a brilliant save. And then from the ensuing corner to kind of in the second phase of play from that to have the ball put across and they score, it's just, yeah, ridiculously frustrating. And Postecoglou dismissed the suggestion afterwards that it would be good for Forster's confidence to kind of have a game like that under his belt where he'd made some terrific saves. He said, I don't think he's lacking in confidence. He's an experienced guy and has probably thought to himself that that's why he's here. If needed to come in, be that reliable goalkeeper for us. It's helped he's already played this year. It wasn't his first game. He's played his part tonight. It's just disappointing we weren't able to capitalise on the football we played to get the 3 points. I don't think he's lacking in confidence, but it's always good for him to at least pull off a couple of big saves for us tonight and get back into the group. He just needs more game time and rhythm, really, Forster. And you kind of feel like he's starting to get there. I think I said this before. It's worth noting that the last time he had a stretch of games for Spurs was replacing the injured Hugo Lloris at the start of last year, and he was good enough that his form got him back into the England squad. So, yeah, Fraser Forster's, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. He's going to have the odd moment where he's not able to do something that Vicario does, but I also feel there's going to be moments where he brings something different that Vicario can't. We'll see kind of how long this process is with Vicario. And I'm sure Forster will be fine in the meantime. There was a moment where he was talking about the goalkeepers. I think it was the day before the game. I think it was Wednesday. I can't remember what he said. He said something like he kind of praised Forster, and he said, I think he said that Brandon Austin, he's a good keeper, and then he said, and Alfie Whiteman, yeah, he's been at the club for a while. I just thought, wow, you could have at least praised him as well. I said about the goalkeeping situation a million times. They'll look for something for the future there because Forster's out of contract in the summer. Alfie Whiteman's out of contract in the summer as well. So whether that person becomes available in the January window or whether it is a summer purchase, we'll see. It may be that they get to the January and they think, well, Vicario's not got that long left now. We probably can see this through. Be interesting to see who they eventually go for. I know there's a lot of people going for Kelleher and wanting that to be the one at Liverpool. You can't rule it out entirely, but I would be stunned if Kelleher goes anywhere where he is not undisputed first choice goalkeeper. To kind of come from the situation he's been in at Liverpool, where he's a terrific keeper, yet is not their number one. You don't go anywhere where you can't just immediately, that's your spot, that's it, you're the keeper. You don't want to go through that at a club that maybe isn't at the level of Liverpool. Maybe. I know Spurs aren't right now, but yeah. And also whether Liverpool would even sell to Spurs and the size of the bid it would probably take to get him away. So kind of all of that combined, it's a bit like, it's beautiful, it's a lovely idea, but he's not coming anywhere to even be in a battle, I don't think. I think he is going somewhere to not be in a battle because that's what he's been used to. I wonder if he ends up somewhere, I don't know, like a Newcastle maybe, or even Chelsea perhaps. They kind of go through their goalkeepers, don't they? But yeah, I thought Forster was good. Just to the left of him, just to the front and left, he had a man that is half his age. That must make you feel old when you're on the pitch and there's a player just off to the left playing as a teammate who is half your age. And that was Archie Gray, of course, just 18 years old, starting at left back for Spurs. And as I feel like in all of his performances pretty much this season, he's got better and better as the game's gone on. It's almost like he's some kind of robot from the future, a Terminator, if you will, that kind of studies and learns what's happening in the game and processes it and adapts as it goes on and gets better and better and studies his environment. I know that's nothing like Terminator. They don't study the environment so they can play a football game well, but you know what I mean. I thought he was good. I thought he had some tough kind of moments down the wing. So did Pedro Porro, and Roma's wing play was good. And they kind of kept trying to double up down their sides as well, and maybe didn't get as much help. Same with Porro. Maybe Johnson and Son didn't help out as much as possible. And he got forward well. I can't remember who he crossed it to now, but I think there was a really good swung-in cross in the first. I know what it was. Johnson got in front of the keeper, headed the ball up in the air, and I think it eventually came back down. Johnson swiveled, hit a shot that was blocked, and I think that was a Solanke overhead kick that the keeper saved. And that all came from Gray's really good cross. And then he did that really nice kind of overlapped, I think it was Son, and then put the ball across for Solanke to hit against the crossbar. So, yeah, you can see the elements are there with Archie Gray, you can. And I asked Postecoglou today about him, and I kind of said, you kind of think people forget he's only 18 and that he's kind of judged, in a different way to other young players. And where does he sit, really? Because in the kind of the list of young players that Postecoglou must have coached over 26 years or so. And he said, there's a real maturity at only 18. We asked him to play left back. He's never played that position in his life, but he does it with a real efficiency and calmness. I'm so excited by Archie. And that's another positive for us, that we have another 18-year-old who just plays and no one mentions that he's 18. They just measure his performance. And like I said, I'm asking him to do different jobs. It'd probably be more comfortable for him if he was settled in one position, but he's playing football at a really high level in Europe and the Premier League. That's going to set us up really well for the player that he's going to become. I thought Lucas Bergwall was really good when he came on last night. He made an impact. And with everything else we're building, there's some real excitement around the young players as well. I thought Gray did well, especially being on the wrong side. Because that's the other thing as well, isn't it? As a natural right footer, having to go across to the left and just... It's the whole thing of trying to work out what you do when a player kind of... When they turn, when they take you inside, when they go to... If they're going staying close to the touchline, then it's putting you on your weaker side as well. He did play as a left back, definitely second half Ferencváros, didn't he? Because Davies started on the left, and it just wasn't working. They switched it. I feel like at Leeds there were a couple of times when he switched to the left as well. But yeah, I thought he did fine. And Lucas Bergwall, as he said, Postecoglou, what surprised me was he had a string of defensive headers in his own box from set pieces. Did really well, showed proper strength to get to them. And yeah, I thought it was only a little cameo, but I thought it was reasonably positive, bearing in mind, the last European game was when he was really disappointing in Istanbul, and couple that with a bit of an impact against City, kind of forcing the Grealish pass that led to the fourth goal. It's a good little couple of games for him, and kind of just showing that he's ready for a little bit more and taking that on as well. And alongside Gray, Ben Davies, of course, who just kept putting his body on the line. The defensive unit wasn't great all the time. It still looked a little bit makeshift. And we mustn't forget that, as well as they did Dragic and Davies against City, it's still not the first choice Spurs defence. It didn't have Destiny Udogie in there, it didn't have Romero, it didn't have Van de Ven. It's still a makeshift one. But yeah, it was kind of a funny one. I felt they held the line really well at times. And the three moments where Roma scored goals that were offside, they weren't... it's really difficult. People see those. I think actually Maddison said it really well, that he pointed this out in an interview about a month or two ago. He said, I think people see goals that are ruled out for offside against us as, oh, that was poor defending, they allowed a big chance. When actually it was really good defending. They held the offside trap really well and the player was offside. It's true. I do think there's times when I look at, I saw on social media last night people saying like, oh, the Spurs were lucky that Roma had 3 goals chalked off. And it's like, well, no, they weren't, because they held the offside line and those 3 goals were offside for a reason. That's the point. That's also another skill in defending, is holding that line. And the irony, of course, is that Basuma came along and messed it all up in that last gasp, Mats Hummel's goal. And Ben Davies, we found out this week, it was one of those things, I don't know why. I've said this before, we never entirely know whether there's an option on a contract, because it's not. Sometimes they include it in the contract length and sometimes they don't, Spurs. And obviously we just assumed Ben Davies finished at the end of the season. And yeah, I don't know why, it never really crossed my mind that there may well be an option in there. And lo and behold, there is. And Spurs intend to take it. So Ben Davies will be with Spurs. He has the possibility to be with Spurs until 2026, which is 12 years since he joined the club, which is mad. And actually, ahead of this game, Wednesday, I asked Postecoglou about Ben Davies and just essentially said, does he think he gets the credit he deserves outside the club to clearly what people believe about him inside the walls of the club? And he said, it's hard to say with perceptions, because it depends what your barometer is. There's so many these days where, depending on what rabbit hole you go into, you can get any outcome you want. I doubt anyone who has any sort of real passion for this football club or real passion for football wouldn't say that he'd be very highly respected within or outside of this football club. He's captain of his country. Testament to his ability is the fact that a number of coaches of this football club have all trusted him at different times, whether that's my opinion or Jose, Antonio, Enrico, or anyone else who's been managed by. It just goes to show that Ben's very well respected within the game. It's interesting. He probably just forgot that Nuno was a manager, but that's actually very well left out, because Nuno was the one that was trying to bomb Ben Davies out. He didn't rate him at all. He said, I don't think there's any doubt that Ben's well respected within the game and he's still performing at a very good level. He's captain of his nation. With us, he's really grown into that defensive role of playing centre-back. At the weekend, him and Radu were outstanding. This was obviously before last night. So that's an interesting one, going into the whole centre-back kind of look in the summer, because unless a move comes up and Spurs are kind of covering themselves with the option in case and to get a fee. If it's not for those reasons, then they're going into next season, with potentially Romero, Van de Ven, Dragishin, Davies, and Luka Vuskovic coming on as well, and we'll see where Ashley Phillips and Alan lies there. You'd imagine Alfie Dorrington gets a loan move, because he kind of feels like he's dropped out of the first team picture since he's come back really from that serious hamstring injury that he had. Probably needs a loan move just to rebuild things. A little bit like Tyrese Hall as well. Tyrese had a really good kind of stint towards the end of last season, and just pre-season didn't quite work for him with the first team. But he's kind of been putting in the effort with the under-21, and I think he now probably just needs a loan move in January just to kind of experience senior football really and get that kind of into his ways. But so Ben Davies, contract option, it's for another year. It's quite interesting, that kind of fitting, I guess, that two really bestest mates, Ben Davies and Son Heung-min, have both got options that Spurs are intending to take up. It may be that one or both just gets a new contract. They may agree one, but there is that backup for Spurs that they can extend it by another year. But as I was saying earlier about the defenders, it'd be interesting to see whether Postecoglou still feels he needs another centre back, because obviously he kind of warned against that in a way a couple of months back, and kind of not blocking the path of Vuskovic and Phillips, which I don't know if I buy entirely. And obviously Romero's future has been the subject of much speculation, so we'll see kind of what that holds and everything as well. But it would appear that Ben Davies is going to be a part of things, and I wonder whether, if he does stick around for longer, whether there's a pathway into coaching for him as well. But Basuma's all right when he came on, but obviously that offside moment was a bit daft. They're going to need him to be on form against Fulham at the weekend, because, of course, Ben Scott goes back to his suspension, and it's almost like he's wheeled out for this in the Rangers game. And they kind of put him away back in the cupboard again until he can come out. And they'll need Decky to be on form again. Decky was, I think it's a compliment to him that he wasn't really at his best last night, but still was an absolute menace to Roma. Got an assist, hit the post, just made a nuisance of himself all over the pitch. Postecoglou was asked today about his remarkable stamina, because I think he's potentially run more than anyone else in the Premier League per game. I think there's a couple of players that I think have run more than him, or had before the match last night. Sorry, we're talking about Premier League anyway. That had in the Premier League, but had played more games than him. Because don't forget, was it the first game he came on for like the last 11 minutes or so? And I think the other two players, I can't remember who they are now. Maybe Lewis Cook was one of them. I can't remember who the other one is. But they've played every game, whoever it was. So Postecoglou was asked about, Decky's remarkable stamina. He said, it's not a fluke, it's a lot of hard work. There's some science there, some genetics or DNA. He just has a real capacity to be able to run at a certain level consistently. His recovery rates are really elite in that he can go and rest quickly and go again, but there's also that mental strength to do it. A lot of players have the capacity to, but maybe reach the limit where they naturally get tired and don't go again until they need to. But Decky will keep going and going. It's a big part of his football. It's a big strength of his. Again, I'm not a biomechanist, but his running efficiency is really good. He doesn't seem to use too much energy, or that's how it looks to me. That could be a load of crap. I don't know, but he does. I quite like that bit. If you think about it, if you're trying to stop him and he's in your vicinity, you think he'll go once, twice, 3 or 4 times, and that can wear oppositions down. He has the quality as well. We have to be mindful of not overburdening him because he's played a lot. And with the squad we've got, he's played in the middle and on the wing. And we don't want to diminish that. But at the moment, he still feels really good. And it's a big part of his game. And it was put to him, because I think Decky did an interview after the game where he spoke about how there's times when he just puts his phone away and just won't even look at his phone for prolonged, kind of maybe even days, just because he wants to focus on getting better and improving himself. And it was kind of put to Postecoglou that two of his teammates that he's had over the years, Cristiano Ronaldo and Harry Kane, kind of shares that, and maybe he's kind of picked that up from them, and it feels like he's got that laser focus on improving. And Postecoglou said, yep, absolutely spot on. He's very ambitious about how good he can be, and that's a great thing. He's still relatively young, and for his position, there's a lot of improvement in him. I've just got a feeling with Decky that he's not going to settle for any level apart from being the absolute best, and it's great for us. So, yeah. I every time I've interviewed Decky, you just get that feeling from him. He believes that he can be one of the best in the world, and he's going to stop at nothing to get there. And he's got a hell of a lot of ability to make it happen, and the drive to make it happen as well. So it'll be interesting to see whether in 2-3 years' time we're talking about him being in that kind of elite level. Certainly in the Premier League, he's been one of the best players this season in the Premier League. He will need rest though. These games are coming thick and fast, and that's why I really feel like we're at a point where Postecoglou just needs some January additions, and I think it has to come in the attacking areas as well. Could do with another left back, but that's a whole other thing. I mean, you look at how many injuries and unavailable players they've got right now. The bench last night, he had 2 16-year-olds that had to be at school this morning. I mean, that's just ridiculous in a Premier League team. They're Luca Williams-Barnett and Malachi Hardy, in case you don't know. What a brilliant thing for them to go into school this morning and go, lads, ladies, you'll never guess what I was doing last night. I was on the bench in a Europa League game against Roma. It's just like such a cool thing for them. What a brilliant experience. But yeah, you shouldn't be in the position where you've got 4 academy kids as well. Because there was Mason King as well, Callum Olasese on there as well. I mean, they didn't even fill the bench. I think they had 11 players, and that included 2 goalkeepers as well, with Austin and Whiteman. So they should not be in a position where they've got so many. And look, it is the numbers. It's to have 6 unavailable players. It's going to kill most squads in that respect. Of the bunch that are out, Romero is almost back. They were going to have a little look at him. He almost ruled him out, but then didn't from the Fulham game. Postecoglou, he said that he's got to get through some stuff. I think he said today, and then there's a training session tomorrow if he gets through that. So he didn't want to rule him out, but he also said, he's probably unlikely. Mickey van der Ven is on the road back. He's doing some work outdoors. I saw him in the training when we were watching open training. I saw him in the gym while I was watching open training on Wednesday at Hotspur Way. You could see Mikey Moore was in there. Mickey van der Ven was definitely in there doing some work as well. And they're just going to be really cautious with both of them. Mikey's been absolutely knocked for six. He was by this virus, and they're just playing it really careful and not overloading him with the intensity of Postecoglou football until they're absolutely sure it hasn't affected him anyway, and he's going to be completely clear of it. And I've got a lot of people kind of asking me, what's wrong with him? What's exactly wrong with him? I just want to kind of re-impress on people, or just impress on people. He's 17 years old. This is a very young. It's not even an adult yet, and no one's going to go into medical history, things like that. Medical stuff, and Postecoglou's not going to do that. It's just a virus that's wreaked a bit of havoc with him, and he just needs a bit of time to kind of build himself back up to levels he was. That's kind of it, really. But yeah, a lot of people kind of doubting that, and the way social media works. And then the other aspect with Van der Ven, obviously, there's going to be a lot of caution because he's had a number of hamstring injuries, and I think Postecoglou told me this a couple of weeks back. They are going to make sure he ticks every single box they need him to tick before they even put him into the group. Because I was watching some of the stuff from today. There was a little video went out, and he's using the ball, he's twisting and turning, he's jostling with a sports science staff member to kind of act as an opposition player. So they are putting his body through it, testing what it can do, and they've got to make sure there's a little prolonged period that he's handling that before you put him back, because the worst thing would to have him break down again and require some kind of surgery or something. As we're seeing, hamstrings at Spurs and surgery are not what you want. So, going back to January window, Postecoglou was asked about that today. This was the clearest indication for me. I think he wants extra bodies. And I do feel it's probably in the attacking slots because he keeps talking about how few wingers they've got to be able to play. And he said, we're always planning for every scenario. A lot of it will depend on where we are as a squad at that time. Between now and then, it is only really Romero and Van der Ven who will be back in that time frame. But Richie will hopefully be back in the new year, and we'll just assess where we are squad-wise. But certainly with Johan Lang, the technical director, I've already had a number of meetings for a strategy in January. I think last year we did a little bit of business, which ended up helping us, but nothing concrete now because January is always tricky and depends on where we are squad-wise. But that's kind of the clearest indication they are starting to try to plan or pushing on plans for what they need to do within just over a month's time. It's not long now. And I kind of asked him about squads, and I said, I always remember Pochettino had a very set squad he wanted. It was something like 23, 24 players. And I said to him that Postecoglou is essentially a streamlined squad's a thing of the past now. It's just not able. You have to have huge squads. And he said, I think so. And it's not just the fixtures, it's the attrition rate. We've got a lot of injuries, but a lot of clubs have. I think we've been talking about it for a while, but at some point it's going to come home to roost for all the powers that be because players are getting overloaded. There's no doubt about that. There's too much evidence. You're either going to get a diminished product with the best players not out there, or clubs will have to carry bigger squads to cater for the demands of it. So yeah, talking of crazy demands, the run of fixtures continues. Obviously, we've got Fulham at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Sunday. Spurs really need to be on the ball here because, win that, and you've got the rarity of back-to-back Premier League wins, which we haven't had too many times this season. I think it might only be the second or third. Because look, if you don't win it, the inconsistent tag is just going to keep weighing you down. Do win it, you're up there. You're moving from sixth place into kind of really into the mix below Liverpool. Postecoglou wants to be challenging up there at the top. That's what he wants. Yes, he wants to be there with a bit of style, a bit of swagger, rather than being pragmatic. But he wants to be there. Don't doubt that. You can't doubt that. He's not just there to be like some kind of ringmaster in a circus. He wants to be the man that brings the trophies to Tottenham. He's said it enough times. So, yeah, that's it. Frustrating night last night. Some really nice elements to it. Some really not so nice elements to it. Ultimately, a bit frustrating because it meant that they could have been in a really strong kind of position and in control in that massive group table. Now they're ninth, a little bit out of it. Still 3 games to go. Big match in Glasgow against Rangers coming up. Rangers, I think, have moved into 8th above Spurs. So, yeah, that's a biggie. Battle of Britain, as it were. That's going to be another big atmosphere, a little bit like Istanbul in terms of the noise you'd think from the crowd. Spurs need to go there and straight away try and quieten it down, dampen it a little bit. But yeah, that's all to come. First up, one game at a time, Fulham. Please, please, Spurs, turn up, do what you got to do, and yeah, do it with a bit of style if you need to, well, you will, because that's who we are, mate. Apparently, yeah, yes. Early kickouts, well, early 1:30, isn't it? So please finish the weekend in a nice way, Tottenham. Please, that would be lovely. Yeah, time to head off. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves. I shall catch you later. Goodbye.